Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our second support session with me, Ashraf Murad, and it's the second support session of our Universal Bliss program. Every first Saturday of every month between 2 and 6 we do our seminar, and we began in July last month, and that was our first seminar. This month of August was our second seminar, and towards the end of the month we have a support session that focuses on the main ideas of the seminar. So last month was our first support session with me, and this is now our second support session, and next week on the Wednesday you'll have your second group support session with the students who are learning and sharing and supporting other students. So this is our event, the second Universal Bliss support session, and I'm very pleased to be here with you and to take us further along this wonderful journey of going beyond. And so the format is basically review the main points of the Universal Bliss seminar, and then we will look at the practices and exercises, and then we'll have question and answers and a recap of the announcements. So that is our program for this particular evening, for the next 2 hours or so, and I'm going to begin with reviewing the main ideas of the Universal Bliss Seminar 2. And so in Universal Bliss Seminar 2, we introduced you to how we proceed. How does one move forward to have the experiences you desire? And we looked at attachment as an obstruction, and the other side of attachment is resistance. So anytime we try to move forward in life beyond whatever is or beyond the way we are, and if we move forward without allowance, there is no forward movement. So it is very typical. Over 20 years of working with people, I find that people have a tendency to actually be against what is going on, or to be against ourselves while we are the way we are. And so we have this opportunity of learning, to learn how to progress. So what is it that we are progressing towards? So we know that everybody generally is living at a level of unconsciousness and subconsciousness. In the last support session, I said to you there's 5 levels of awareness. The first one is unconsciousness. Unconsciousness is the way your tribe and your people, or people in general, operate and have operated, and it is not at a level of awareness. So people unconsciously believe certain ideas or unconsciously operate in certain ways, and this is just the way of a collective operating. And so we are born into collectives or collective energies, or even the people on the planet form a collective. So oftentimes people live unconsciously, just perpetuating the way they've been, the way their parents have been, the way family members have been, the way members of the tribe have been, whether that is a tribe, a cultural tribe, a religious tribe, a national tribe, or a collective global community. So we brought to your awareness that oftentimes we live unconsciously, and sometimes we might actually live subconsciously. What does that mean? It means maybe in your family others have good relations with money, but however we have a difficulty with money. So sometimes your tribe may have good relations with money, but you might not. So sometimes, people come from a tribe of so-called working class people. You understand? So working class people means we go to work in the morning, we come back tired and exhausted, we live hand to mouth, and that's how it is. So you can come from a tribe of so-called working class people. But sometimes you could actually come from a tribe of people who, for example, don't work. They might have businesses, or they may be professionals. But you may be within the tribe having some kind of difficulty. So you can operate subconsciously. Do you understand? So we as we are, we have aspects of ourselves that are unconscious. That means we're not even aware that we are operating in that way, and it's a way that just perpetuates our tribe. And other times, maybe our tribe is slightly progressive, but we have blockages within those tribes, and we might be the black sheep of the tribe that we're in, etc., etc. So we can operate unconsciously, and most of people do, and we can operate subconsciously, and people do, with repeating patterns in their life. If you have a pattern in relationship with money, there's never enough, or relationship with a partner, you are always not chosen or abandoned or dumped, or people you attract are never good enough for you in some way, that is a subconscious pattern. And we are talking about going beyond living unconsciously and subconsciously to become more conscious. So what does it mean to become more conscious? It means to become more aware. Once you become more aware, you are free from unconscious and subconscious identifications. That means your life begins to be owned by you. More and more, your life is owned by you. You see? So if your life is owned by you, then we can actually have more freedom in our lives to have the lives we desire. That means you can go beyond what your family members or people in your tribe have lived, and you can go beyond what you have lived. So if you have some kind of recurring pattern that is holding you back in your life, the good news is you can go beyond that. And it means you've got to become more conscious. So we are focused on the conscious level of awareness, to become more conscious. And that's why you are a student of the teaching, the Universal Bliss teaching, and you, by bringing yourself to these classes and the support sessions, are becoming more and more conscious. As you become more and more conscious that the way you've lived and the way you're living, you can actually go beyond what you've lived and how you're living. And you can go beyond how you've lived and who you've been and what you've experienced. Now that's becoming conscious. A lot of people don't even know that they can grow beyond the tribe, or they can grow beyond themselves, who they've been and how they've interacted and what they've experienced. So you, by joining me and being on this adventure with us all together, are becoming more and more conscious. And congratulations to you if you are still with us. That means it's month 2 and it's support session 2. And if you've done all 4, at least with me, sessions, that means you're doing very well. If you've also joined in and enjoyed the support sessions, that is the support provided by students and their involvement, even better. So if you've been taking advantage of all the support that is available here, that means you are willing and able to actually go beyond who you've been and how you've lived. If there have been other students who have come in and are unable to sustain their involvement in the learning experience, that means they are not secure enough to actually become more conscious. What that means is, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them or bad with them or they shouldn't be like that, but what it means is the trances, the unconscious trances are very deep, or they are committed more to who they've been and how they've lived and what they've experienced, and they are unconsciously championing that, and so they cannot come into the classes and become more conscious. You see, you can't ride two horses at the same time. You can't keep yourself being who you've always been and undo your insecure self at the same time. So congratulations to you for having participated thus far and being with us. What this tells me is that you are not controlled by trances that maintain who you've been and perpetuate how you've lived. And every human being, to some degree or another, has a negative propensity to remain the same. This is normal. People unconsciously champion unconscious living, subconscious living. People, as much as they say they don't like their lives or they don't like what's going on in their lives, as much as people say they want to learn, they want to grow, there is this tendency in people to keep maintaining who they've been. And so in order to do that, they must remain unconscious. And what that means is they will fall away. They will fall away. For example, an exercise program. A lot of people might join an exercise program, but after the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, then they actually fall away. Why? Because they want to remain at their level of unawareness around fitness or health, etc. They want to continue to be how they've been, behave how they've behaved, live how they've lived. So we have this tendency generally to maintain and perpetuate who we've been and how we've lived. And the fact that you've shown up here and you're with us thus far, it means you are committed, not just interested, but committed to growth. And this is our process, as I'm explaining it to you, that you're going to have an opportunity to become more and more conscious, more and more aware of what you were unaware of. In fact, this is how growth occurs. Growth occurs when we become more aware. You know, I've always said to my clients, don't try and change yourself. Don't try and change your thinking. Don't try and change your, the way you speak. Don't try and change the way you feel. Don't try and change the way you act or interact. Don't try and change your attitudes. Don't try and change your behaviors. Don't try and change the people in your life. Don't try and change the circumstances of your life, because all that you're thinking, you're speaking, you're thinking, you're speaking, you're feeling. See, you're thinking, you're speaking, you're feeling, you're acting, you're interacting, your attitudes, your behaviors, the people who are in your life, your experiences of life, all that is a reflection of your awareness. Your awareness. Your awareness is the single most important factor in your life. The level of your awareness, will lead to the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act and interact, your attitudes and behaviors, who you have in your life, what is going on in your life. All that is going on in your life is really about your level of awareness. You understand? So, and the saddest thing is, people do not spend time actually developing awareness. And this is what our Universal Bliss Spiritual Empowerment Truth Teachings program is about. Progress and prosper through spiritual power. It's all about truth, becoming aware of truth. What is truth? And how, when we become aware of that, the nature of the universe, or the nature of life, the nature of existence, the true nature of life and existence, how it changes our thinking, how it changes our feeling, how it changes the way we be and behave the way we act and interact, the way we relate, who's in our life, what's in our, all that changes. Everything changes when you become more aware. And that's why a lot of people maintain unconscious and subconscious ways. They don't like becoming aware, because if you become aware, you change. You know, a lot of times when people listen or read, they read for agreement. They read to perpetuate what they know. You will see this in different groups of people. They listen to the same people over and over again. The people who don't challenge them to grow. The people who don't give them insight. The people who don't give them awareness. So oftentimes people look to a certain type of people, and they get information from these sources repeatedly, because these sources of information, they maintain the level of unconsciousness, and they don't really give anything insightful, anything purposeful. So the average person doesn't listen to anything unfamiliar. And so by remaining the same in terms of what information you get, the level of awareness doesn't grow. And because there's no growth in the level of awareness, there's no change in the person, and there's no change in the life. So people are set up like that generally, just to listen to the people they've always listened to, especially people who don't challenge them to grow. And when they listen to other people speak by accident or by mistake, or if they're somewhere and they listen to somebody, they listen quickly for familiarity. And once they can't find familiarity, they shut down. They start yawning, they shut down, they start thinking, they go unconscious, because they don't want to learn. Because the moment they learn, they'll get more information. The more information you have, the more you transform, the more your life changes in terms of awareness. Not just information, but awareness, enlightenment, you see. You become of something, you become aware of something you weren't aware of. That awareness is very profound, and now you're more informed. Like, for example, a simple thing. You might not know that you can make a meal. You can cook a meal. You might not be aware. And because you're not aware that you can cook a meal, you don't know how to cook that meal. And you don't cook that meal. So, but if you're aware of, this is how it's done, and you can then do it. If you're aware of something, you can apply yourself. But if you're not aware, you can't apply yourself. I'm just making the point that a lot of people will keep listening to the same people to remain unaware with the familiar. And others, if they come across something unfamiliar, they shut down and close up. And so oftentimes people are just listening for familiarity or listening for agreement, and suddenly something sounds different, they shut down. They think this person is trying to brainwash me, they think this person is trying to control me, because they want to remain the same. But not you. Congratulations that you are willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to develop. You are willing to contemplate, you are willing to become conscious. So we are together on a path from unconsciousness and subconsciousness through consciousness to superconsciousness and supraconsciousness. There's 5 levels, but the foundation level is conscious. You got to become conscious. So education, information, insight, what I'm giving you, awareness. Once you become aware, the more aware you become, the more conscious you become. The more aware you become, the more conscious you become. And once we have certain amount of information about what we're talking about, then we can move beyond who we've been and how we've acted and interacted and how we've lived. So where are we heading? We are heading to superconsciousness and supraconsciousness. What does that mean, superconsciousness? Both super and supraconsciousness is part of multidimensional awareness. Multidimensional awareness. Now what does that mean? It means we become aware that we are more than the bodies, and we are more than the mind, and we are more than the emotions, and that we exist beyond time and space. We exist beyond time and space. And so this is the thing that most people do not recognize, that they are more than the subconscious self and more than the unconscious self. They're not aware of that. They think they are the identities, the roles, the rules, the ideologies. Most people live a fourth dimensional, contracted, shrunken version of who they are. Who they think they are and who they really are two different. So this is what we call fourth dimensional powerlessness. When somebody is operating unconsciously and subconsciously, we say that they are operating powerlessly. They are powerless. And the typical observation of a powerless person includes neediness. The typical tribal person is needy, dependent. They feel that they by themselves are not enough, not okay, and there's something needed. So we are recognizing that there's an opportunity for us to go from fourth dimension to fifth dimension, from powerlessness to powerfulness, from subconscious and unconscious ways through consciousness to super and supraconsciousness. So it means we go from being a beggar, needy person to a believer, a person who has the one power, universal source, sustaining and supporting them and having a relationship. So once a person becomes conscious about themselves and how they're relating and how they're operating in life, how they're believing and how they're perceiving or misperceiving, they can start operating in another way. So we can go beyond the tribal understanding of God. And we can have an experience of the universal support that is always available to us. And that is called superconscious awareness, where you realize that there is that which, because of which you are and everything is. There is beyond time and space, the creator of time and space, and that everything in time and space is because of and is in the care of. So superconsciousness is multidimensional awareness of the fact that there is beyond time and space the creator of time and space, the uncreated creator of all things created. It means you are secure in truth. The word secure in Aramaic and Arabic was Mormon and Mu'min, the secure. And this is what the great masters have spoken about faith. So the actual experience of faith is superconscious awareness. It's not a belief system. It's beyond beliefs. It's a knowing, it's an awareness, it's an experience. So we are on a path of learning, becoming more conscious, and becoming aware that we can live beyond beggars, and we can live as believers. If you don't like that word, boss. Use the word boss, which basically means non-needy. You can experience your life non-needy. And that is one part of our movement, that we are choosing to go from insecurity and neediness to security and non-neediness. That's one. And two, we are choosing to go from powerless children relating powerlessly. That means we are not nurturing ourselves and not nourishing our lives, going from addict to adult, beggar to believer or boss, addict to adult. See, we are choosing to operate in a way that we have a relationship not only with God, because a believer has a relationship with God, is aware that God is relating to them. Superconscious awareness is an awareness that there is the one sufficient for us, available to us, caring for us, considering us. So when you have that level of awareness that there is beyond time and space, its creator, a universal source energy, And it's called different things by different people throughout time, but it is the one universal source energy, and it relates to us, and we can relate to that one. It's super consciousness. And when we realize that we can relate to ourselves, we can relate to ourselves in a way that actually is caring and considerate. We can relate to ourselves, our bodies, and our lives in a powerful way, in a way of operating that nurtures us, and instead of negating ourselves, and is nourishing of our lives instead of neglecting of our lives. You see? So we realize that not only subconsciously and unconsciously, part of the tribes we've come from who have operated in a non-actual experience of God, they've had belief systems, and they have beliefs, they have ideas about God, but they haven't had an actual experience of security with God, actual trust and relating to a power that is very intimate with you, very close to you for you to relate to. So we realize we can go from beyond the tribe and beyond insecurity to security, connected with source, and then we can also go beyond how our tribe and we subconsciously neglect ourselves and negate our lives, how we can actually be with ourselves and relating to ourselves in a nurturing and nourishing way. So that's called addict to adult. You see, we can do that. We can go there. And we can go lastly from the victim, who is always blaming. It's because of somebody, I'm not happy. It's because of something, I can't have what I want. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough. We go from blaming and that thing of like trying to make people be the way we want them to be, trying to make life be the way we want it to be, controlling and manipulating and feeling helpless, to go from that kind of unconscious and subconscious powerless relating to being a vicegerent or a victor or a co-creator, whatever you want to call it. Meaning, we want to go beyond victimhood into vicegerency, where we realize we, in a sense, have the ability, well, not in a sense, we actually have the ability to see and feel realities into being. It's called prayer in the old language. In the new language, we call it manifesting, co-creating, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So we are realizing that there is 3 power centers that we can access. 3 power centers. One is spiritual power. Go beyond the beggar into the believer. Again, we're not asking you to believe anything. We're asking you to have an awareness and experience of truth and security and freedom. You see, so we go just using these words as archetypal words. A beggar, from a beggar to a believer, is spiritual power. Most people, if you look at most people that you know, and even you to yourself to some degree, even me to some degree, we are spiritually disempowered, spiritually impoverished. We are sometimes feeling needy. You understand? I need something, then I'll be okay. I need something to stop, then I'll be okay. So we, to some degree or another, have beliefs in need, a trance, and we are actually impoverished to that degree. And when we release the belief in need, which means we go beyond identification with the subconscious and unconscious parts, meaning when you outgrow your insecurity, when you become aware of your insecure self and you outgrow it, you will experience greater spiritual power. Now, this spiritual power is very important. Why? Because it is spiritual energy that is used so that we can care for ourselves and our lives. Have you seen people that are optimistic? They get up in the morning, they're on the go, and they're doing things and achieving things and whatever it is. But you see other people can't mobilize. They are tired, exhausted, whatever it is. They can't enjoy themselves. There's no joy, fun, laughter, play, satisfaction. When you see people who are into experiencing joy and fun and play, and there's love to give and to receive, you are looking at somebody who's got spiritual energy. They've got spiritual energy. To the degree that they actually have spiritual energy is the degree to which they have personal power. So spiritual power is the first power center, going from the beggar to the believer. The more you have spiritual power, the more you have spiritual energy to go from the addict to the adult, from a person who neglects themselves and their lives to a person who's paying attention to themselves, their bodies, their lives, a person who is aware and attentive, is relating powerfully, a person who is actually interested in themselves, and is relating to themselves. That will happen automatically with the more spiritual power you have. So with more spiritual power, there's more spiritual energy to care for yourself, your body and your life, and then there is the movement into personal power. So spiritual power, personal power, and the third one is creative power. Creative power is when you have that spiritual power and that personal power and you're using your imagination fully, which is supra-consciousness. See, I told you we're going from subconsciousness, let's start properly, unconsciousness and subconsciousness through consciousness to superconsciousness and supraconsciousness. What that means is, the more conscious you become aware of truth, you are in a study of truth, and you become aware of truth and you apply the principles of truth, the more you will feel non-needy. You will challenge the trances that keep you needy, and you will then challenge the trances that keep you an adult, keep you from being an adult, that keep you instead an addict, and then you can go beyond being a victim and you can experience yourself as a vicegerent or a victor or a co-creator, meaning you'll be able through energy, fifth dimensional functioning, influence your world by having an energy of the reality you desire. The reality is produced. This is what we call miracles. This is what we call prayer. This is what we call. So we are learning here to go beyond who we've been, insecure, powerless, and depriving, because that's what a beggar is, needy, and an addict is relating poorly with their bodies and their lives. I mean, gambling addicts throw money away, other addicts destroy their bodies, you know what I'm talking about. And we go beyond the beggar and the addict, and we go beyond the victim, which is, look what's happening to me. We actually emerge as a co-creative being operating fifth dimensionally. So this is why we're together. We are on a journey together over the next many months or so to move from who we've been, where we're coming from, to move through conscious awareness and to move beyond who we've been. And so it is a process. It is a process. In Seminar 1, we gave you a general overview of what this is, what this is not, what it involves. And in Seminar 2, we recapped the ideas that were shared there, but with more specific focus on the practices that were required to be practiced and the techniques and then we went on to the new material, which I'm going to cover going forward at this particular point now. But my point that I'm sharing with you is, we are together interested in learning, becoming more and more conscious, and I've told you before that you can look at this as the motorist analogy. Become aware of the motorist analogy. The motorist analogy, or the driver's license analogy, is a very good analogy to give you an indication of what we're doing here and the process that is involved.